Episode 1 of Dark Matter begins with a man called Jason stepping out of a dark building, clearly disorientated. As the camera pans up, we see he has just emerged from a strange black cube. All will be revealed in due time, my friends. From there we jump back to the present where Jason is living a seemingly normal life in Chicago with his wife Daniela and their teenage son Charlie. Jason also has a friend called Ryan who calls him while he's driving to school. Ryan has just won a Pavia Prize, which is a huge deal in the scientific world. It also comes with $1 million and the chance to open his own research lab. Jason forces a smile, but you can tell that this stings. He's clearly happy for Ryan, but also quietly wondering what might have been. Jason works as a physics teacher at Lakemont, and during class he begins explaining Schrodinger's cat. However, the bell rings before he can really get into it, which is fitting given this whole show is about to become one giant Schrodinger's cat problem. There is definitely something going on with Jason too, especially when he heads home and writes in a journal about the major events of his day. Meanwhile, Daniela is an art dealer and also seems far more settled with their life than Jason is. She encourages him to go out and celebrate with Ryan, who's drinking at Jason's local bar, the Village Tap. Now Jason and Ryan spend the night drinking scotch and talking about science. Ryan then brings up a major opportunity for Jason, a huge project in San Francisco with hundreds of millions of dollars behind it. Jason turns it down though, not wanting to leave Chicago or his family, but as he walks home afterwards he's clearly unsettled by the life he could have had. Then, everything changes. A masked man attacks Jason, holds him at gunpoint and forces him into a car. Even creepier, the man knows Jason's passcode and seems to know Ryan as well. Now Jason is driven to a secluded location and forced to undress. The masked man takes his belongings, including his wedding ring, then gives him a flashlight and leads him into an abandoned warehouse. There, Jason is injected with some kind of drug and told to get dressed. Before he passes out, the masked man shows him a strange glowing box and asks one very loaded question. Jason, are you happy? When Jason wakes up, he's surrounded by doctors in a company called Velocity. They cut off his clothes, spray him down and place him in quarantine before giving him clean clothes and a room. Naturally, Jason has absolutely no idea what's going on. Now, a woman named Amanda then enters and hugs him warmly, but to our Jason, she's a complete stranger. She tells him he's cleared quarantine, and soon he's taken to meet a man named Layton. In this reality, Jason is not a school teacher. He's actually the co-founder and chief science officer of Velocity, and apparently he's been missing for 14 months. When Jason mentions Ryan Holder, both Layton and Amanda react strangely, suggesting Ryan means something very different in this world. Jason eventually seizes a chance to escape. He runs from Velocity, scales the wall outside and takes a cab back home using the keys and his belongings. But when he gets there, it's not Daniela waiting for him, but Amanda. Jason quickly realises that in this version of reality, he's not married to Daniela at all. He lives with Amanda, he won the Pavia Prize, and his entire life has taken a completely different path. Understandably, Jason spirals and runs away. Meanwhile, the masked man returns to Jason's original home, and the twist is finally confirmed. The man who abducted Jason is another version of Jason himself. The version has no cut on his nose, and he slips straight into Jason's life with Daniela. As they kiss, Daniela notices a bandage on his arm and asks what happened. He simply replies, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." Episode 2 of Dark Matter begins with Jason heading to the Village Tap. Ironically, we got to get out of this place by the animals is playing on the jukebox, which is pretty fitting given his current situation. Unfortunately for Jason, the bartender has no idea who he is, and things quickly go from bad to worse as he's kicked out. Jason heads to the ER instead, convinced something is seriously wrong with him. Meanwhile, the other Jason wakes up in our Jason's house with Daniela and tries to adjust to this new life. Even something as simple as making coffee is clearly unfamiliar to him. Now back at the hospital, our Jason's CT scan comes back clear, but the doctors do find a psychoactive compound in his system, so that explains the injection from episode 1. However, things get even stranger when Jason discovers there's no Daniela Dessen in this world. After doing some digging, he finds out Daniela never married him. Instead, she's now a successful artist with her own gallery opening. Jason gets the address and sneaks out of the hospital before Amanda and Velocity can reach him. He arrives at Daniela's gallery, where her artwork is actually based on him. Jason hugs her, but this version of Daniela has no idea who Charlie is. Ryan is there too, and in this world he helped Jason build Velocity from the shadows. After the exhibition, Jason speaks with Daniela and Ryan about the strange differences in this life. He tries framing it as hypothetical, but eventually explains the truth. He comes from another reality where he and Daniela are married and have a son. Ryan thinks he's delusional and leaves, especially after Jason tells him that in his world, Ryan is a huge success. The next morning, Jason calls Amanda and tells her he's not okay. He gives her the address of a mental health hospital, but this is really a distraction. Once Amanda leaves, Jason sneaks into Daniela's house. Inside, everything is different, including a picture of a waterfall, which becomes one of the big emotional markers between the two realities. Back in our world, the other Jason goes to Jason's class and acts completely differently. He arrives late, takes control of the room, and gets the students far more engaged than our Jason ever did. He also starts settling into family life, although the cracks are definitely there to see. His advice to Charlie about women is much more cynical, and he even uses the wrong toothbrush without Daniela noticing. The next morning, other Jason calls Ryan and turns down the San Francisco job. He then heads to a storage facility where he keeps the mask, tools and other items he used to abduct our Jason. At this point, our Jason begins to understand what's happened. The other Jason built the box we saw in episode 1, which allows him to move between realities. Regretting the choices he made in his own life, Jason crossed into our Jason's world and stole the life he always wanted. That night, Jason and this world's Daniela talk about the relationship they never had. Things start getting intimate, almost like two strangers discovering a connection they missed in another life. Unfortunately, the moment is cut short by the doorbell. When Jason opens the door, Amanda's goon is waiting. She storms in, shoots Daniela in the head, tases Jason, and knocks him out. Episode 3 of Dark Matter opens with Amanda learning what happened to Daniela, and she's understandably horrified. Meanwhile, Jason wakes up back at Velocity, restrained in a room. Layton tells him that after Jason returned, they were not prepared, and now they see him as a danger. Detective Mason then visits Layton, asking questions about Jason and the art show. This puts Amanda in a difficult position too, and she's forced to lie to cover what's really going on. Amanda warns Layton that hiring Dawn was a mistake, but the two argue about Jason and the box. Velocity has clearly poured millions into this project, and they still don't fully understand how Jason managed to return. Layton then brings Jason to the lab and shows him the box. This is where Jason learns that, in this reality, he's the only person who has gone inside and come back alive. 3 people entered before him, but none of them returned. Jason watches footage of this world's Jason, Jason 2, entering the box, followed by footage of Jason 1, our Jason, crawling out of it later. So from Velocity's perspective, this looks like their Jason finally came back after 14 months. Amanda later speaks to Jason privately, and he all but admits he's not Jason 2, but a very different version. Unfortunately, Ryan is brought in and Layton interrogates Jason again. This time he presses harder and calls him an imposter. With his cover blown, Jason attacks Layton, but Dawn steps in and almost stabs him before Layton stops her. Jason is then questioned about how the box works, but of course he doesn't actually know. Later, Jason is locked in a room with Ryan, who explains that Jason 2 asked him to create a drug that alters brain chemistry. Ryan believes the key is something called decoherence. Essentially, the box operates as a gateway, and the drug allows the mind to interact with it properly. So that glowing box from episode 1 now makes a lot more sense. Now back in our world, Jason 2 continues trying to settle into the life he stole. He meets Daniela for dinner, and is caught off guard when she mentions a dinner party that he forgot about. Of course, he forgot because he's literally the wrong Jason. Jason 2 tries to piece together details from social media and manages to get through the evening well enough until Ryan shows up. Jason 2 gives him a half-hearted apology, but Ryan can immediately tell something is off. Later, Daniela also notices that Jason has been acting differently. She's not exactly complaining because in some ways he's more present than before, but she knows something has definitely changed. Jason 2 covers by saying the incident outside the bar scared him and made him realise how close he came to losing her. It's a neat lie, but clearly he's still learning how to inhabit his life properly. Meanwhile, our Jason remains trapped at Velocity until Amanda finally decides to help him. She breaks him out and the two head for the box. Dawn tries to stop them, but Amanda smashes her fingers in the door as they climb inside. With the drug in hand, Jason and Amanda inject each other and prepare to travel. When they wake up, they find themselves in a strange, seemingly endless corridor of doors. Episode 4 of Dark Matter opens with chaos back at Velocity. Layton is scrambling after Jason and Amanda's escape, so he steps inside the box himself, shuts the door, and tries to follow them. Meanwhile, Jason and Amanda are inside that strange endless corridor, trying to figure out how to get back to Jason's world. Jason believes the corridor is basically a cross-section of different realities, with their brains interpreting it this way because the actual concept is impossible to comprehend. They open one of the doors and step into a destroyed version of the world, covered in ash and falling apart around them. Yeah, that's not the right one then. The city outside is a complete wasteland, so they rush back to the box. Amanda points out that they have 50 vials left, meaning 50 trips in total, or 25 each if they split them evenly. After injecting themselves again, they return to the corridor. Layton also manages to reach the corridor and sets out to find them, while Jason and Amanda continue jumping and hopping between realities. One world has no atmosphere, definitely not that one, but Jason reminds her that there are infinite possibilities and they need to stay focused. They also realise they need food and water, so randomly opening doors is not going to work for long. After a close call with a violent version of Layton in another reality, Jason and Amanda eventually step into a frozen world. Amanda passes out from the cold, but Jason manages to find a cabin nearby and starts a fire. In the morning, Jason realises the box is buried under the snow. He also starts to understand that a corridor may not be random after all. He believes the worlds they enter are shaped by their emotional state when they open the door. So, if they want to find the right reality, they're going to need to control their minds. Back in our world, Jason too continues behaving differently. He encourages Charlie to be reckless while driving, he walks out on his class, and decides he's done living what he calls a slow death. He then goes to see Layton. This version of Layton sees through Jason too pretty quickly, and says he's happy to be friends, but he's not investing in anything. So Jason too takes him to the warehouse, gives him the psychoactive drug, and shows him the box. Together they enter the corridor. Jason too explains that a box opens a door to different realities, that a user's mind helps shape where they go. So our Jason wasn't actually too far off from the truth. If Layton thinks the wrong thing, they could end up somewhere very bad. To prove it works, Jason too takes him to a beautiful world before bringing him back. Afterwards, Jason too explains that in his original reality, Layton was one of his closest friends. This is why he trusts this version of him with the secret. Layton admits he would give almost anything to start over somewhere else, which is exactly what the box can offer him. When Jason too returns home, he finds Daniela and Charlie upset. It turns out he's forgotten the anniversary of Max's death, which is a massive mistake. Jason too tries to smooth things over by buying Charlie a new car and encouraging Daniela to start painting again. But he's clearly changing their lives in ways our Jason never would. The episode ends with the other Layton stumbling through the corridor, bloodied and battered, carrying a box of vials. He appears to find the same frozen world Jason and Amanda just escaped, but instead of stepping out, he shuts the door and keeps going. Episode 5 of Dark Matter begins with Jason 1 and Amanda opening one of the doors in the corridor and immediately finding themselves in a flooded world. They manage to shut the door, but Jason is clearly feeling the pressure here. Amanda believes they need to slow down and emotionally regulate because their mental state seems to influence which world they enter. Soaked through, the pair take off their wet clothes and talk about their pasts. Amanda knows a lot about Jason too, but our Jason barely knows anything about her, which makes for an interesting imbalance. Amanda reveals that Blair was actually the first person to go through the box in their world. Unlike our Jason's reality, where Blair is a lawyer, this Blair was an engineer. Jason tries to stay positive and suggests maybe she found her dream world. After resting, Jason and Amanda open another door and find themselves back at Velocity. However, the lab is trashed, the lights are off and the whole place is in lockdown. The person running this world is none other than Blair. This makes sense given Amanda had been thinking about her when they opened the door. Blair has been surviving inside Velocity using emergency generators because the world outside is overrun with giant winged creatures with deadly stingers. It's not exactly the dream world Jason was hoping for, and it's not his world either, obviously. While Jason looks around, Blair tells Amanda that she needs to start thinking for herself. Right now, she's worldless, and sooner or later, she'll have to decide what kind of reality she actually wants. Blair chooses to stay where she is for now, but gives Amanda a field guide before Jason and Amanda leave. Elsewhere, Jason too continues showing Layton how the box works. He explains that they don't have access to the entire multiverse, only the worlds directly adjacent to their own. Leighton's excited but also clearly aware of how dangerous this all is. Meanwhile, our Jason and the other Amanda appear to make it back to Jason's world, only of course they haven't. This Chicago is deserted and under lockdown because of a deadly virus. No, not that one. Jason still insists on going home, where he finds Daniela dying and Charlie upstairs, waiting to be taken away. Amanda warns him that this is not his world and they don't belong there, but Jason struggles to let go. He gives this Daniela medicine to ease her passing, says goodbye and finally returns to the box. Next they enter another world that looks much closer to the right one. The episode cleverly frames this alongside scenes of Jason 2 with Daniela, making it seem like our Jason may finally be home. But of course, he's not. In this world, Jason has been to prison, and when our Jason appears in the bedroom holding a knife, it understandably does not go down well. He apologises and escapes with Amanda as the police close in. As the episode ends, Jason 2 returns to his original world to gather a few things. However, he sees blood from his fight with our Jason and realises that Jason and Amanda are somewhere out in the multiverse. He tells Leighton to go and find his dream world, while he himself prepares to seal up the box so our Jason can never return. Episode 6 of Dark Matter opens with Daniela painting, while Jason 2 encourages her to quit the gallery and become a full-time artist. After all, thanks to Leighton's investment here, they now have plenty of money. The problem is, this Jason is still making mistakes. After dropping Charlie at the skate park, Jason 2 later picks him up and gives him peanut ice cream, forgetting that Charlie has a nut allergy. Charlie reacts badly, and for a moment things get very serious, until Jason 2 manages to use the EpiPen and save him. Daniela is horrified when she finds out. She starts questioning how Jason could forget something so important, and with his other little changes, like suddenly flossing, she knows something is off. Daniela speaks to Blair next and wonders if Jason 2 might be cheating. She decides to watch him more closely. Meanwhile, Jason 2 continues working on his plan to seal the box, while Leighton prepares to leave with his vials and find a new world for himself. Jason 2 then tries to win Daniela over with a grand romantic gesture. He takes her to a charity auction and unveils one of her unfinished paintings. Unfortunately, Daniela winds up humiliated rather than touched because this is not what she wanted at all. Jason 2 drops her home, but Daniela secretly follows him to the storage unit where she finds empty ampoules. Unsure what they are, she takes one to Ryan and asks him to examine it. Meanwhile, our Jason and Amanda continue searching for the right world. Jason realises the smallest details need to match up, from the colour of the front door to the sign outside the village tap. But no matter how many worlds they try, something is always wrong. Eventually, Jason and Amanda take a break. They eat, drink and dance, trying to feel normal for one night. Jason then visits a version of Daniela at her gallery, but this one has blonde hair and rejects him when he asks her for coffee. Amanda has her own emotional moment too, watching another version of herself across the street, happy with a partner and child. It really hits home that Jason has a life to return to, while Amanda has lost hers completely. Back at the hotel, Amanda tells Jason he needs to go deeper emotionally if he wants to find his real world. He can't just focus on the surface details. He needs to remember what Daniela and Charlie mean to him. Jason later goes out and watches another version of himself living happily with Daniela. It hurts, but it also helps him understand what he's actually searching for. By this point, these two only have 10 ampoules left, so they need to be smarter. Back in our world, Ryan confronts Jason 2 about the ampoule Daniela gave him. Jason 2 doesn't tell him the truth, but he does take Ryan to the box. The two inject themselves and enter the corridor before stepping out into another version of Chicago. This world is actually better in a lot of ways, kinda more advanced and more progressive. But then Jason 2 reveals the truth, or at least part of it. He tells Ryan he's not the Jason he knows, and then he abandons him in this Chicago. Jason takes Ryan's phone, shuts the door, and leaves him stranded in another reality. He then returns home and goes through with his plan, sealing the box in concrete so nobody can come back through. Episode 7 of Dark Matter opens with Daniela trying to message Ryan, wondering exactly where he is. Jason 2 tries to calm Daniela down by cooking for her, but things get awkward when Detective Mason shows up looking for Ryan Holder. Jason claims Ryan got drunk and that was the last time he saw him, but Daniela is clearly listening closely. Once Mason leaves, Daniela confronts Jason 2 about the storage unit and the ampoule she found. Jason 2 lies again, claiming Ryan was producing the compound and that his erratic behaviour must be a side effect. Meanwhile, our Jason and Amanda take a break from searching for the right world. They end up in a much more peaceful version of Chicago, where people seem kinder and more empathetic. They eat, relax, and for a moment, feel like they can finally breathe. The pair also start slipping closer romantically, but Amanda knows the truth. Jason still wants to get back to Daniela and Charlie, while she has no real home left. So Amanda makes the decision and decides to stay in this world. Jason gives her a hug goodbye and secretly drops a couple of vials into her bag, giving her a way out if she ever needs it. When Jason returns to the box, it becomes clear this is the same world where the other Jason abandoned Ryan. Jason now has only 2 vials left, so every choice matters. He steps into another world and seems to finally find one closer to home. Daniela recognises him, believes him, and they agree to spend the night together. Unfortunately, there is one massive problem. This world already has its own Jason, and he's upstairs in bed. Jason realises this is still not his world and spirals again, and later he speaks to this version of Charlie who's struggling ahead of Holly's anniversary. Jason tries to help, but Charlie pushes him away. So our Jason then heads to the village tap to find Ryan, and in this world we learn that Ryan owns a garage and never went down the same academic path, which is another reminder that even the smallest changes can create a completely different life. Back in our world, Detective Mason questions Jason 2 again about Ryan's disappearance. The pressure is starting to build, so Jason 2 returns to the box and pulls another version of Ryan into our world to cover his tracks. It's a pretty ruthless move and shows he's starting to unravel, while our Jason uses his final vial and focuses everything on getting home. And this time, it works. He steps out of the box and finds the concrete smashed open, along with an empty ampoule on the floor. As he makes his way home, we also get a neat little Easter egg with Upgrade playing at the cinema. This is of course a nod to Blake Crouch's other sci-fi thriller, which is also a great book by the way guys, and I highly recommend it. Jason finally reaches his world, but he knows Jason 2 has already taken over his life. He doesn't have a firearm license, so he buys mace and a knife instead. However, right after he leaves the shop, Jason 2 arrives at the exact same place and realises something terrifying. Our Jason is back. Episode 8 of Dark Matter begins with Jason 2 discovering that Daniela has gone to see Ryan. While taking out the rubbish, he's suddenly attacked by another version of Jason. So yes, we are now officially in full multiversal chaos. The two fight in the alley and Jason 2 eventually manages to leave this other Jason bleeding out on the ground. Meanwhile, our Jason spots another version of himself at his hotel. When he heads to the village tap for a drink, he finds yet another Jason there too. This version explains what's been happening. Every choice our Jason made inside the box created another possible branch, and some of those Jasons have also managed to find their way back to this Chicago. In other words, Jason 2 didn't just steal one man's life, he may have accidentally created an army of desperate Jasons, all trying to reclaim the same family. This rogue Jason explains that his Amanda died in a very dark world, and warns that every Jason believes he's the real one. So naturally, some of them will do whatever it takes to come out on top. Meanwhile, Daniela visits Ryan and quickly realises something is wrong. This Ryan is sick, confused, and insists he's a mechanic. He has no idea who Jason is, but he does recognise Daniela as the woman who bought him drinks. Daniela gives him the number for a mental health clinic and leaves. And the next morning, Daniela lies that she's going to the gallery, but in reality she heads to the storage unit. There she finds photos of her and Jason, a large supply of ampoules and Ryan's mechanic jacket. So the pieces are finally starting to come together for her. Elsewhere, Jason 2 takes Charlie around the University of Chicago campus, but another rogue Jason appears and starts chasing them. Jason 2 abandons Charlie to deal with him, and the two Jasons fight through the library before Jason 2 eventually strangles him in the bathroom. While all this is happening, Charlie ends up being stopped by the police. Meanwhile, our Jason deliberately gets himself arrested so he can speak to Detective Mason. He tells her that another version of himself has hijacked his life, which understandably makes him sound completely insane. Daniela doesn't believe it at first either, but Jason begs her to call the other Jason and test him. She does, and Jason 2 immediately gets details of their history wrong. That's enough for Daniela. Our Jason tells her to meet him at the Bean, and they agree on a safe word: Jupiter. Back home, Daniela finds Jason 2 packing. He claims they need to leave Chicago because of Layton's investment, but really he knows the other Jasons are closing in on him. Daniela makes her move and knocks him down the basement stairs before racing off to find our Jason. On the way, she and Charlie are intercepted by other versions of Jason, showing just how dangerous the situation has actually become. But eventually Daniela, Charlie and our Jason are reunited at the Bean, bringing the episode to an end. Episode 9 of Dark Matter begins back at the house with another version of Jason confronting Jason 2. We'll call this one Jason 3. And Jason 3 wants to know where Daniela is, but quickly realises Jason 2 is useless to him and beats him down. Meanwhile, our Jason, Jason 1, is on the run with Daniela and Charlie. Their phones are completely blowing up with messages from other versions of Jason, all desperate to reach them. They turn the phones off and Charlie comes up with a plan. They head to his friend James's holiday house where they can hide out for a while. With things calming down, Daniela and Jason finally talk. Daniela knows this is not going to be simple, but Jason compares it to Max's death. The whole world was turned upside down back then, and somehow they managed to survive together. This is another impossible situation, but they have to face it together. That night, Jason checks his messages and finds a link to a chat room. There are 103 users online, and every single one of them is another version of Jason. Some are angry, some injured, some desperate. One even suggests joint custody, which is pretty ridiculous and horrifying. I mean, how does parental custody work with 103 different versions of Jason? The reality is now clear though. There are a lot of Jasons out there and they all believe they deserve this life. Meanwhile, Daniela takes a walk to the beach and Jason tells her about the chat room. Back at the house, Jason 2 is still tied up with Jason 3, who reveals his Amanda died in the 6th world. Jason 2 says he thought our Jason would have liked this world, but Jason 3 is having absolutely none of that. He's much more unhinged and possibly much smarter too. Because Daniela used Blair's car to get out of town, Jason 3 manages to figure out where they are. He invites Blair over, but she sees both Jasons and refuses to hand over her phone. That night, Daniela enters the Jason chat room as a guest and tells every version of Jason that she has made her choice. Our Jason is her Jason. Unfortunately, that message also brings the other Jason straight to her house. Jason 3 confronts our Jason and even knows the safe word, Jupiter. He orders Jason to strip and give up his clothes, clearly planning to replace him. But before he can go through with it, Jason 2 appears and kills Jason 3. When Daniela and Charlie arrive, Jason 2 hands Daniela the gun and finally owns up to everything. He admits he caused all of this and for once decides to do the right thing. He gives our Jason his car keys, returns the wedding ring he stole, and helps the family escape while the other Jasons descend on the house. Inside the car, Jason 2 has left them the box of ampoules from a storage unit along with Max's ashes. This is actually a really nice touch, especially after he missed Max's anniversary earlier in the season. There's also a phone with a voice message from Jason 2. Within this, he admits that envy consumed him. He was too afraid to take a leap of faith with Daniela, while our Jason chose the messy, beautiful life he always wanted. He knows he can never truly apologise for destroying their world, but he also knows they're no longer safe there. So Jason, Daniela and Charlie head for the box. When they arrive, dozens of Jasons are waiting there too. For a moment it looks like things could turn violent, but after Daniela's message in the chat room, most of them choose to respect her decision. There are a few dissenting voices no doubt, but ultimately they let the family leave. The finale then gives us a glimpse of the other characters. Amanda meets Ryan in the utopian world, which nicely confirms that it was the same reality Jason 2 abandoned him in earlier. Layton seems to find the kind of world he was looking for, while Blair finally gathers the courage to leave the creature-infested world behind. As for Jason, Daniela and Charlie, they step inside the box together. Charlie opens the door to a new world and the family look out at whatever lies beyond. Then they step through and close the door behind them, bringing Dark Matter Season 1 to an end. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.